Imagine, in the sun-cracked cradle of the Western Sahara, a desert flame rising, a fire ignited to burn away what it saw as corruption stain. This is the story of the 11th and 12th centuries, a time when two formidable Berber Islamic empires, the Almoravids and then the Almohads, swept across North Africa and into Spain. They were not just conquerors, they were revitalizers, driven by a fervent desire to purify their faith. Their arrival was a storm of revival. A force that aimed to reshape the spiritual and intellectual landscape of an entire region. From the sands of Mauritania to the heart of Andalusia, their black and white banners heralded a new era, one of both brilliant scholarship and brutal conformity, a world reborn in blood and ink. But what drove this purifying storm? What desperate whispers on the desert wind gave birth to such an uncompromising vision? It all began with a religious scholar, Abdullah ibn Yassin. In the mid-11th century, among the Sinhaja Berber tribes of the Sahara, he found a people whose Islamic practices had become blended with local traditions. He preached a return to a stricter, more orthodox form of Islam, a call for purity that resonated deeply. His followers, known as the Almoravids, the people of the Ribat or fortress monastery, were bound by this shared zeal. They were warriors of faith, their faces etched with the dust of endless marches. Their eyes reflecting a fierce determination to impose their vision. Their leader, Yusuf ibn Tashfin, was a military and political genius. He transformed this movement into a sprawling empire. In 1062, he founded the city of Marrakesh, a dusty, sun-baked encampment that would soon become a magnificent imperial capital, a testament to their power and ambition. The Almoravids didn't stop there. Answering a plea for help from the Muslim Taifa kings in Spain, who were struggling against the Christian Reconquista, Yusuf ibn Tashfin crossed the Strait of Gibraltar. He defeated the Castilian army at the Battle of Sagrajas in 1086, a victory that sent shockwaves across the Christian kingdoms. But he saw the Taifa rulers as decadent and religiously lax. Soon, he turned on his former allies, annexing their petty kingdoms and uniting Muslim Spain, Al-Andalus, under his stern, orthodox rule. Under the Almoravids, trade routes that had long crisscrossed the Sahara were revitalized and secured. Gold from West Africa flowed north, funding the construction of mosques and fortresses. Scholarship flourished in cities like Marrakesh and Fez. Madrasas, or schools of religious learning, were established, promoting the Maliki school of Islamic law. The famed Al-Qarawiyyan University in Fez, one of the oldest in the world, became a beacon of knowledge. Yet, this revival came at a cost. The vibrant, multicultural, and often tolerant atmosphere of Al-Andalus began to fade. Philosophers and freethinkers were suppressed. Books deemed heretical were burned. It was a time of consolidation and piety, but also of narrowing intellectual horizons, a heavy price for a unified faith. The social bonds that had once allowed different communities to coexist were now strained under the pressure to conform. But just as the Almoravid flame began to flicker, a new fire was being kindled in the Atlas Mountains. A spiritual leader named Ibn Tumurt emerged, declaring himself the Mahdi, the prophesied Redeemer. He preached an even more uncompromising doctrine known as Almohadism, which emphasized the absolute unity of God. He condemned the Almoravids, accusing them of anthropomorphism, of giving God human-like qualities. His followers, the Almohads, meaning the Unitarians, saw it as their sacred duty to overthrow the ruling dynasty and establish a truly pure Islamic state. After Ibn Tumurt's death, his successor, Abd al-Mumin, led the Almohads on a relentless campaign of conquest. It was a brutal, fratricidal war. In 1147, the Almohads captured Marrakesh, bringing the Almoravid Empire to a bloody end. Abd al-Mumin then proceeded to conquer the rest of North Africa and Al-Andalus, forging an empire even larger than that of his predecessors. The Almohads were builders on a grand scale. They left behind some of the most iconic architectural marvels in the region. The Koutoubia Mosque in Marrakesh, with its majestic minaret, the Giralda in Seville, which was once the minaret of their great mosque, and the unfinished Hassan Tower in Rabat all stand as testaments to their power and artistic vision. They were patrons of the arts and sciences, too. The great philosopher Averroes, or Ibn Rushd, served the Almohad court, though his rationalist philosophy often put him at odds with the religious authorities. This period was a paradox, a time of incredible cultural achievement overshadowed by the terror of enforced orthodoxy. For a time, the Almohad Empire was the dominant power in the western Mediterranean. Their armies held the Christian kingdoms of Spain at bay, and their navy controlled the seas. By the turn of the 13th century, their empire stretched from the Atlantic coast of Morocco to the shores of Libya. They had achieved the dream of a single, unified state under one true path. But this peak was precarious. The internal strains of ruling such a vast and diverse territory began to show. Rebellions simmered. And in Spain, the Christian kingdoms were uniting against them, their resolve hardened by decades of conflict. The turning point came in 1212 at the Battle of Las Navas de Tolosa in Spain. A combined army of Castile, Aragon, and Navarre inflicted a catastrophic defeat on the Almohad forces. The myth of their invincibility was shattered. The defeat opened the floodgates for the Reconquista. One by one, the great cities of Al-Andalus fell, Córdoba in 1236, Valencia in 1238, Seville in 1248. The empire crumbled. In North Africa, local dynasties rose up to carve out their own kingdoms from the collapsing Almohad state. By the mid-13th century, the Great Almohad Empire, like the Almoravid Empire before it, was gone, its black and white banners little more than relics. So what is the legacy of this intense, turbulent period? The Almoravids and Almohads were beacons of revival, yet their light often cast deep shadows. They unified vast territories, secured trade routes, and sponsored incredible achievements in art, architecture, and scholarship. They left behind a legacy of resilience and a powerful model of state building. But their story is also a lament for what was lost. The tolerance that had once characterized Al-Andalus was crushed beneath the weight of their purifying zeal. Families were torn apart, communities were forced to conform or flee, and countless voices were silenced. Their interconnected dreams of a pure and unified world often became shattered hopes for those who did not fit their mold. Looking back, we are left with haunting questions. From the desert dawn of the Almoravids to the heartbroken peak of the Almohads, was their rise a matter of divine will? Or a consequence of the political chaos of their time? Do the ruins of their madrasas and mosques hide stories of fervent faith or deep-seated fear? The empires themselves have vanished, withered in schisms and conquest, but their spirit, a complex mixture of piety, brilliance, and intolerance, endures in the cultural DNA of the region. The full veil over this period has not been drawn. In the forsaken sands and crumbling citadels, untold stories and unanswered questions still linger, like silent cries of lost voices and fallen dreams. What are your thoughts on this dramatic era of fire and faith? Did their quest for purity justify the cost? Share your reflections in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to follow for more journeys into the past.